Hello everybody and welcome to a bonus episode of Darkest Dungeon. I've been doing a lot of Radiant mode testing on my own time, kind of trying out the game, seeing what it's like, and this video is going to show off a couple things, most specifically this here boss fight. So one of the things that they added in Radiant mode to every mode, that being Radiant mode, Darkest mode, and Stygian mode, is the inclusion of a new boss called the Shrieker. The Shrieker is only available in champion mode, which means in my testing file this is a bit of a bum rap because I don't have any level 5 people. But the Shrieker can appear under two circumstances from what I've read up on after fighting him. He'll either A, show up just randomly as a town event, or B, if you have a full party wipe, he will appear as a means for you to get your accessories back after you lost them from your dead party members. Now, I didn't get to do the latter. Also, I'm cutting out preparation phase because I take too long on those things when I'm not actively recording for LP. I don't know what happens during the party wipe, but there is a chance of something occurring when you get this as a town event, which really does incentivize you for taking it, aside from, yo, I want my accessories back. But it's certainly an interesting fight, and I do make a little bit of a few small mistakes. Now, I will warn you, due to the nature of the internet and people being, you know, jackasses that actively say, hey, did you know this happens, without thinking, I was slightly spoiled on the Shrieker's mechanics. However, I wasn't totally spoiled. I only knew one specific thing, and that's it. That's why, if you're watching this, I'm technically over-preparing. I also left this loading screen in because it does tell you something interesting. That is one of 3 motivating factors for doing this quest. So, I feel the Shrieker explains itself. You are not seeing things. The Shrieker gets 3 actions a turn. Now, the one thing I was spoiled in about this mission, and the one thing you want to focus on, is that it's both a timed mission in that you only get 3 turns to do this mission. After the 4th one, the Shrieker fucks off and takes his stuff with him. Second off, you don't want to fight the Shrieker. The Shrieker at its core has about 60 dodge, and he will do a really good job at just, well, critting like a bastard, and avoiding attacks. What you want to do is attack the nest. The nest is where all the treasure is held, and that's what you want to attack in order to get your stuff back. Now, with that in mind, I have made one mistake. I didn't realize that the Shrieker forces his way up to the front. Whenever he uses Peck, that is just a free move up, which means that nest is always going to be behind him. Because of that, the leper is effectively worthless in this fight.
Such a terrible assault cannot be left unanswered.
The thing about the leper is that he can only hit the first 2 ranks, and since you want to hit the Thatchery, you would want to do that. Now, naturally you would think, wait a minute, Wang, you have a bunch of people that have high move capacity. Can't you just move the nest? No, as I mentioned before, not only does the Shrieker get 3 actions, it feels like he has a predisposition to where, if the nest is in front, his next move will almost always be Peck, which will allow him to move forward. And believe me when I say Peck fucking hurts. If you're gonna do this fight, bring bandages. It's very helpful. I don't quite know what Regurgitate does, mainly because I was too busy stressing out during this fight. Now here's what I mean. When we pulled the nest, bam, Peck. Damn near instant reaction, but that was probably due to the initiative system at work. I do gotta say though, it's a really cool looking design and a very well-balanced boss. I mentioned before in other videos with Chitlin that the big issue with big monsters such as this is that their action economy is a problem. And by giving a boss that you're probably going to see often 3 actions, even though it's the only threat, it does make him a legitimate concern, because he still has 3 actions.
facing the abyss.
And when those 3 actions can crit your head open,
Prodigious
something like this could
does
happen.
not dissuade the sharpened blade.
Yeah, once you either defeat the nest or wait out for 4 turns, the Shrieker fucks off, doing anywhere between 50 to 80 stress damage to everyone, along with 2 damage, which is why my Hellion fucking died. Now, I could have avoided that. If I had used Adrenaline Rush, I could have survived, but I think the Shrieker would have gotten away. But by doing so, you get your accessories back. Now, the big issue I have with this mission primarily is that the mission doesn't tell you what accessories you've lost. So you could decide whether or not you want to avoid getting a wicked amount of money and your accessories back because you're not prepared. Now, the other thing is you get unique quirks. Now, there are positive quirks and there are negative quirks. As you see here, my leper has Corvid's appetite, which means he eats way more and also is predisposed to examining corpses. You could also get positive quirks, and you could also get unique bird accessories. But now, since I feel like I've done a disservice to the LP, here's an actual Shambler fight.
Darkness holds dominion. Black as death.
We're also going to see here me using a unique man-at-arms build, the Commander build. Throughout the entire LP, I've been using him as a frontliner, mainly for riposts, stuns, and, you know, halfway decent damage. Now, that's not the only thing the Man-at-Arms could do. He has a lot of good buffs. He has a buff that gives everybody 10 to 15 accuracy along with a little bit of crit, which in the late game is really fucking good. He also has a yell that decreases enemy speed by way more than he could buff, which is good for messing with the initiative, but since it's a debuff, it runs the risk of not working, so there's a gamble there. And I honestly think Command Man-at-Arms is also really good. Now onto the Shambler. Typically what you want to do with the Shambler is a mix of debilitate the clappers and focus damage on the Shambler. The big issue is though is that the Sycophants, when they attack, they get 25 prot per attack, along with speed. And it also doesn't help that the, the Shambler always repopulates them, which makes it really hard. This becomes a battle of avoiding stress damage, which is mildly frustrating. Now, I would say if you have a Jester, this is not a problem because, you know, Jesters can mitigate the stress damage caused by the Sycophants. The issue is there's no real way to prepare for a Shambler, so by doing so, it's a little awkward to do so. Like right here, I don't have a Jester to avoid stress damage from the Sycophants, but I do have a Houndmaster to reduce their prot. This will allow me to kill them. Now luckily, Strenuous Lament is the only ability that doesn't produce a Sycophant. If he does that, that's actually really good. Sorry, I'm drinking while I'm doing this. Positioning also doesn't fucking matter with the Shambler. The Sycophants can attack from any area whatsoever, and so can him, so any move skills are effectively worthless. You want to focus on either killing one or all and doing some damage to the Shambler, or else the fight's gonna drag out. One thing I also should mention is that the fight will always start with a surprise. Your formation is going to get busted up, which is a little frustrating, honestly, but if you're adaptive, things could work well. Like right here, even though the Houndmaster is up front, he's a Houndmaster. He'll actively stun anyone easily. If you also mess with speed with like what I'm doing right now, the Sycophants should generally not get an attack. Like, I'm actually kind of glad I have the Man-at-Arms here because being able to manipulate speed is really fucking good in this game. Like, if you can get the first turn and get crowd control out, any fight becomes a joke. Even this fight, which is taking a lot longer than I expected. I feel like I could have done this a little bit better by maybe moving the Houndmaster back for a turn, but I just really didn't want those Clapper Claws to snowball into like 75 proc characters. Now, another thing to note is that the Sycophants have generally low resistances. We're doing this on a amateur dungeon. I always forget what the name is. And they have 40% resistance to all DOTs. I'd imagine in the later dungeons that scales up to 70. So even though they have high prot, something like, say, a Hellion, a Jester with bleed skills, a Plague Doctor, if you get those with with their DOT skills, they would make short work of the Sycophants, even if they have the high prot. The only issue is that it's slow. Like, even with a Plague Doctor with their crazy DOT damage, it's going to be anywhere between 5 to 6 damage a turn, which means you're going to be taking 2 Sycophant hits, which is, what, 12, 13 stress damage a hit? Augmented because you're fighting in pitch blackness. The best part here is that torches don't work in this fight either, which makes sense, because it's kind of dependent on the night element.
Alone does not dissuade the sharpened blade.
Man, that corpse looks fucking awesome. But yeah, once you kill the Shambler, the remaining Sycophant is dangerous, but not that big a threat. Though I believe, yep. Good job, idiot. It's a good thing he's just a protection dude. Even if he does force control, most of the time it will be of a direct benefit to me. Now, you are incentivized to do this fight, even though I didn't do it in the LP.
Continue the onslaught.
The Shambler actively holds 4 Ancestor accessories, 2 of them actively sought out. You could get the Ancestor's Trinket, or the Ancestor Scroll, which, the Ancestor Scroll is weird because it has the same wording as the Light Tambourine in that it says, plus healing skill and plus stress skill. However, it only affects stress to the recipient, not the skill. So the Ancestor Scroll, which I got in that mission, is good if you want to have a frontliner and you want to keep them healthy. You could also get the Ancestor's Tentacle Idol, which gives you really high virtue chance. There is a cap on virtue chance. You are never 100% guaranteed to get a virtue. However, that does kind of hedge the odds in your favor. The ones that are sought after are the Ancestor's Treasure Map, which gives you scouting chance, and the Ancestor's Torch, which gives you surprise chance. Now, onto a Radiant mode. Radiant mode's really good. It's still the same game, except it's a lot shorter. There are a couple things that I'm not entirely unsure of, mainly because on the LP file I started it on both Darkest mode and before the update occurs, but the one thing that made me smile for Radiant mode is that the Stagecoach is upgraded. Instead, like for the Stagecoach, you could get up to level 4 heroes now. I don't know if that's Radiant mode exclusive or not, I'm pretty sure it is. You only need statues and crests for that, unlike before where you need statues and portraits. And roster was slightly increased from 28 to 30, which is still pretty good. A roster of 30 means you get a lot more versatility in your teams. You could probably do the dog stack, which fucking group really wants me to do. Radiant mode also has increased leveling. Leveling is increased 50%. That means you're gonna get higher level people faster, which is kind of a double-edged sword in my opinion. One of my friends actively, treats this game like a meme and keeps saying Radiant mode is not an easy mode, but Radiant mode is kind of an easy mode because A, you get higher level heroes faster. B, heroes are more willing to go down a tier. A level 3 hero and a level 4 hero are willing to do amateur missions, and a level 5 and 6 hero are willing to do veteran missions. I personally think this is both great and bad. It's great because the big issue everybody had with Darkest Dungeon is that even with the slow burn of leveling and the grind, you still find yourself in circumstances where you have bosses left over in regular mode and veteran mode, and you don't have the heroes to go back on them. By doing this, players can have their quote-unquote 100% completion run, and still not have to worry about like balancing that like I've been doing in the LP. Like if you've seen what I've been doing in the LP, I've been actively trying to balance leveling versus defeating bosses. This becomes a problem though because it makes the game a lot easier. The game was never balanced to have level 3 and 4 gear in... The game wasn't balanced for having higher level people go into lower level dungeons. It was interesting when you get the town event because you get to understand that catharsis, but being able to do that in general does kind of cloud the idea of the difficulty of the game. Oh, excuse me. So I still say Radiant mode is way easier. Like, it makes the first 66% of the game almost trivial. Naturally, the last leg of the game is super fucking hard because champion mode is nuts. But you're getting there faster, and you're not having to worry about rationing EXP and gear. That being said, there's still a bit of difficulty there in that it's hard. I honestly think it's harder to upgrade services. Since you're going at such a breakneck pace, it's harder to get your services up and running. Now, like, for example, I'm probably gonna put a screen cap here. I believe I'm like at week 37 or 38 in my Radiant mode testing. For those that don't know, that's like a little halfway through the game. I've already beaten like 3 of the 8 veteran bosses. But I have a full team of level 5s. I have 2 full teams of level 5s. I have 8 level 5s. I have so many level 5 people already at week 38, which is fucking great, honestly. It is wonderful that you get all these people so fast. But I'm struggling to get my gear up and running. Like, by this week, I have just barely gotten both guild and blacksmith services to level 4, which is really necessary because you need those high skills to actually hit something, and you need those high weapons in order to stay alive. It's not so much of a difficult task, especially with trinket trading, or not trinket, heirloom trading. However, it does make it a little bit tougher to manage the high level guys you have. I could see new players trying out Radiant mode because it's a hot new thing and they're just like, oh man, I have so many level 5s, this is great, and then when they go to champion mode thinking level 4 gear and skills is enough, they will be quite considerably rocked in their socks. So there's that. Now one thing the Radiant update brought, which I like a lot, and I mean a lot, is that money was rebalanced. And this is actually a good thing. Like, antiquarian stuff is upgraded, your money stacks in general are upgraded, certain gems are revalued, which is amusing because citrine is still absolutely garbage, never bring it with you. And money has become more plentiful, which means you're able to get back on your feet easier, for one. So if you're in a loose state, you're not gonna be, you know, you're not gonna be crestfallen. You'll still have a glimmer of hope because you could get money a lot easier and then rebuild people faster. It also incentivizes the use of the sanitarium because that shit's expensive. Cause wow, like, even in the mid-game, locking in a positive trait is 7,000 gold. And much like before, 7,000 gold's a lot. 7,000 gold is a full set of level 5 gear if you have a fully upgraded blacksmith. Most, if not all, people are not incentivized to lock in traits because of that. Now, with the balanced money, there's more of a incentive to do that because you'll have a lot of money coming in general. You spend it all upgrading your heroes, then you say, I have 20,000 in the bank still. I could lock in +2 speed and make my people a lot more interesting. This also de-incentivizes the idea of just, you know, taking 4 heroes, throwing them in a low-level dungeon, getting money and throwing them out, because that's just wasting time, honestly. While that's, you know, a message of the dark elements of Darkest Dungeon and how you should treat people like resources rather than heroes, as a game, that mindset is fucking stupid. It's just padding for time unnecessarily, so I'm glad they thought of that. else is there in Radiant mode? I think that's about covered all I've thought of. As for the champion mode monsters, we're gonna see the one for the Warrens in episode 51. However, yeah, this episode was mainly made because I'm trying to get a lot of commentators ready for the next episode, which is a very special episode. I'm so glad this is the 50th episode. I'm pretty sure you know what it is, which is why I'm working so hard to make it fun. For that episode as well, I'm going to include a dumb video of us palling around and then a tutorial mission explaining the mindset of it, because there's going to be 7 commentators in that video. It's going to be a god-awful mess. But yeah, Radiant mode, really good. I like Radiant mode a lot. It's a great way to introduce people into the game. It is most indeed an easy mode. I don't care what people say, being able to access your high-level heroes in earlier dungeons makes the game super easy. It's also really hard to keep your pacing going, so the late game is still going to be hard. It is a well-balanced mode in my opinion. And the Radiant mode brought a lot more variety into the game. I'm seeing a lot of new things and seeing how threatening things are. If there was ever a time to buy Darkest Dungeon, it's now. The game's really good. You're going to come in and you're going to get your balls rocked. We'll see you folks next time where I am fighting Brigand Wolf. Good night, folks.